Oh, but we will try, I promise you. So without much ado, I'll welcome our guest, Bisi Adjapon. And she was here last year in KD. And I'm excited to host this book chat today. And without much ado, I'll just read her bio. Yeah, a short one. No, I didn't. All right, BC. Yes. Hi. Welcome
Hello,
back.
I'm so happy to be back. Woo! I love Aduna.
So welcome.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
I just feel really good. The people of Kaduna are very welcoming. I love you all. So
Oh.
let's get on with it. I'm sure they didn't come to hear us chit chat.
No, no problem. You have accomplished what most writers struggle with. Second book. The first book, I think. I shouldn't talk about what I think. So I would just like to hear what your struggle was like writing your second book.
Actually, I feel like a fraud. Look, it wasn't a struggle because the second book was written actually first. It was written way back in just that nobody wanted it. And so after the Teller of Secret came out, then this one too came out. Yeah.
Perfect. So your book is timely. I feel with the japa phenomenon we are facing in West Africa. And I'm just curious, when you wrote this book, was it like an advocacy for immigrants and the struggle with immigration, or was it just something that just came by?
Well, I had, I myself had gone through a difficult time with immigration, but apart from myself, I had seen so many friends, so many immigrants going through a lot of struggles. But at the same time, I felt as though the Western world had a way of just looking at us through one veil. They see you, you are African, and that's that. And they don't get to know different people. They think of Africans. Well, you all know this, right? I remember when I had a baby, and somebody came to my room, and a nurse, and asked whether she was just acting very nervous, dropping things and everything. And finally, she just apologized and said, I'm so sorry. I've never been around an African before. And I just stared at her. I was wondering whether she was expecting me to, I don't know, get up and start howling, no, or something. I don't know. So I felt as though there was a need for the West to also get to know all the different types of Africans that we are. We are just as varied, as diverse as they are in their own society. There is no such thing as a one type of American.
Thank you very much. So the book is about love, loneliness, independence, cultural shock. So I'm just curious, how does one maintain one's identity, values, and norms in somewhere like America?
Um, I think that you just need to know who you are. And Lola, in particular, when she went to America in this book, she knew who she was. She was not trying to be American. She was very much herself a Ghanaian, a Ghanaian who loved Nigerian names, and so I think that the most important thing is always being connected to your own roots. It's very easy to get lost when you are in the system. You don't have a cultural support. I think I used to be a teacher before I became an international affairs specialist. And one of the things that really used to break my heart was seeing young children growing up in the West without the cultural support. They felt very inferior because all they knew was what the media talked about talked about Africans or talked about even American blacks. It was very hard for them to have any sense of pride in themselves. So I think what is really important for all of us is to always be connected to our background. So if you look at the book, for instance, while she's in America, she's reflecting on on all the words, the wisdom that her parents gave to her mother in particular, before she left. Would you like me to read?
Yes, yes. Before then, you mentioned two things that were on my mind. One of them is the Adinkara symbol. I
The
think
what? Adinkra
Adinkara
symbols. Yes.
symbol. So you have an interesting chapter in. So I'm just curious for our listeners, what is this Adinkara symbol? What does it represent?
So, not to give a spoiler, because at the end they will understand, but I'm sure you have seen these symbols that, especially there's one particular one that almost every American has. They've even used it in their religion, and you'll pardon me for bringing my bag out here. Um, I brought one. Actually, I'm going to give it out at the end to somebody who can answer a question nicely. But I'm sure you have seen these symbols, right? This one means something like Inshallah, Jinyame. It's like only by the grace of God that something can happen, right? And so we have always had our symbols. There's this whole idea that the Western people came and civilized us, but we've always been civilized. So these symbols represent nuggets of wisdom, and so every chapter has an Adinkra symbol. Yeah.
Okay. The next question before you read is about
Okay.
names because you said
No,
something
let me
about
read
names.
first.
Okay. 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 If you want to read first,
I
if you
want to read very
insist.
badly. I don't want to answer questions.
All right. Then. Here you go.
And since you are interested in questions, I think about names, I think I'm going to read something about names. So pardon me while I get out my glasses.
Who here have read the book, please? Daughter in Exile. Oh, so good to see. Yeah, many, but few hands. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so this is actually chapter 1, and the title is Esse Nete Crema, the teeth and the tongue. They are different, but they learn to work together. 1995. You could say I entered America while living in Senegal by way of one evening in a house near the sea, filled with the smell of salt, flowers, alcohol, perfume, tobacco breath, and pheromones. Americans had crossed my path, but never this many in one space. Olga's house boomed with their loud conversations. They circulated, fixed smiles on their faces, clutching wine glasses, bending over to reach for crackers and cheese laid out on the wicker table in the center of the room. They didn't sit. They didn't break into merengue despite the Congolese soukous music thumping in the background. At 21, I was a fresh university graduate. Everyone else was above 30 and married. I was the only African, one of 3 blacks. The other two were a couple whose masculine half was laughing louder than anyone else. Olga had introduced him to me as Len George or Lennon George, a man with a smile so broad his teeth seemed to begin at one ear and end at the other, strong and white. His wife, an oak colored woman with green eyes and cotton blonde afro, formed part of a clump of people complaining about Senegal. Can you believe it? The houseboy was playing with my son's car. This was delivered with round eyed indignation by a blonde. A collective no arose from the group. They spurred one another on. They're so unbelievably lazy. And the weather. Talk about the heat. I know. And then suddenly it gets cold and there is no way to keep warm. No heat when it's cold, no AC when it's hot. Jesus Christ. Get me out of here. That's what I say. Back to DC, back to civilization. They groaned, avoiding my pointed stare. I had a good mind to restore. Is life perfect where you come from? Shall I stop here?
That was beautiful. I was so carried away. I wanted more, but that's that's fine.
I meant to get to the names, but I was afraid of reading too long. Yeah.
It's fine. So it brings me to the question of names. I believe the names have the power to shape our identities. They are like an affirmation our parents have on us of people they believe they want us to turn out to be. And this is
Oh,
also
I'm sorry, guys, but her voice is very soft. So if you keep your voice down, I can hear
oh,
her. I have trouble
okay.
hearing her.
Oh, okay, okay. I'll just take that again. I just said that names are affirmations that our parents give to us. They call you precious. They call you what they believe they want you to turn up to be in the future. And this is also true for Lola, who called herself she felt she when she was telling her mom, I feel precious when I call myself Lola. And so I was just curious about your affinity to Yoruba names. This is obvious in both your books, and your characters also have Yoruba names. So what do you have to say about that?
You know, this is a very good question. When I was writing the book, I wasn't thinking. You see, in Ghana, there was a time that, I believe it probably happens here in Nigeria, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you like somebody, you give that person your child's name. And so there was a time when we had a lot of Nigerians in Ghana and vice versa. And so many people, there are many Ghanaians who actually, when I was growing up, had Nigerian names. So I didn't think, I just thought, oh, I like the name Lola. I've always, and it's so funny because, Lola is my publisher. I swear I was not trying to suck up to her. I wrote a book in 2008 before I met her. But seriously, though, I didn't think anything of it. One Ghanaian critic was so upset with me. We know you're Nigerian. You don't have to let us know about it every single time you write a book. You're doing it because you want your Nigerianness to show. Honestly, it's just not that. It's always about the meaning of the name. And so Lola was because I just liked the name Lola. I had heard it and I wanted to give it to my character, and my character was also in a habit of giving Nigerian names to other people. So names are very important. I think our parents give us names for a particular reason, right? So, and that is why in the book, at some point, somebody calls Lola Fatu, and that is because during the French colonialism in Senegal, every maid was just called Fatu. The French people were not interested in learning about the names of the people. They just called them Fatu. And so it was the height of an insult when a fellow black at this gathering called Lola Fatu, immediately assuming that just because she's the only black girl there, she was a maid. And that is very offensive. So names are important. And I think it's something, I don't know about those of you who have traveled outside. For instance, my name BC, I think it's very simple. If you like, I'll spell it Beecee. You can pronounce it, right? I've been called Bisi, blah, 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 sir. Or somebody calls, and I kid you not, the school where I was teaching, my name Adjapon became Al Capone. I want to know, first of all, Al Capone is a mafia head, or used to be. He's dead now, was shot dead. I don't want it to be me. But secondly, where do they get the K from? And
Thank you.
actually, my real name is Ajapon Yamwa. I just truncated it to Yamwa because Yamwa, I was being called Yamaha or Yam. Yam.
So sorry about that. So reading this book was very emotional for me. At the point, I dropped the book and I was like, no, I need to catch a break. I was actually tempted to put the book in the fridge. There is this episode in Friends where Joey was reading Little Woman and he had to put the book in the fridge. So I was like, should I go and put this to cool down before I go back to it? So I was just wondering how the experience was for you writing this book.
Oh, it was hard. I'm not going to kid you. I'm a mother. And there is a scene, and I don't want to give any spoilers away. there are two really, really heartbreaking scenes about, and I had to force myself to write it. And I'll be honest with you, to this day, I'm the author of the book. When I start to read it, and I don't really like to read my own books, I'm so sick and tired of it. By the time a book comes out, you've read it like what? I don't know, 100 times. You've edited it to within an inch of its life. You're so tired of it. But when I'm tempted to read some parts, I always skip over those scenes. They drew tears from me, and that's because when I write, I inhabit my characters. I have to feel, and I do apologize. People have told me you touched me. Even Amin was reaching into my DM going, "I'm sorry, man. When is my girl going to catch a break?" And I said, "I'm sorry. Please just hang in there." Right? It was hard. I have to say, I cried and sometimes, and I had to take breaks. So I apologize in advance for any time. But there are lots of funny scenes too. I promise you.
All right.
Maybe not lots, a few.
You had the author. The books are available at the bookstore, so please be kind to go and get them when the book charge is over. So, Daughter in Exile highlighted the complexity of mother-daughter relationship. Do you think it's possible to repair broken bonds?
Where there is love, I believe it's always possible. I'm optimist, and I'm glad that you brought this up because Daughter in Exile, and Mariam Law, she actually, I read your review, said something that when she started, she thought it was going to be a book about romance, and yes, there are romantic relationships in the book, but that is not. For me, the most important relationship was between the mother and the daughter. And being also a daughter of Africa, we always think of Africa as Mama Africa, and somebody being ripped, or she was not ripped, she ripped herself away from her family. She self exiled herself, need to. But I believe that the bond that exists between a mother and a child, I believe, or even a father and a child, I believe those bonds can be repaired. And I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe where love is strong. And we saw, I mean, this relationship, and the mother, we get to know her through her letters, and we see this really strong bond, and yet they go through such difficult times. So yeah, I really believe in that.
Yeah, okay, but this brings me to the other question I have. Was it stubbornness or was it just inner strength that stopped Lola from seeking help from her mother?
I think it's stubbornness. I see this a lot. I mean, and I wrote this because I saw this. I was so frustrated. There's a gentleman I met. This guy used to be a tailor in Ghana, and then he left and went to America. He was illegal, as far as I know. He probably still is illegal. We're talking about decades, right? Because I was there for over 20 years. Now you look at what I'm wearing. Somebody said to me today, "Oh, this is stunning." I got this when I came to Kaduna, and the Kisim Ibrahim Fellows, the person who was in charge at the time, was wearing something like this, and I said I want it. No, just to say that this dress was made and designed by a Nigerian. That gentleman is so talented. Look at Joseph Ike, who is right here in Lagos, produced. Look at all the art that is being produced here, calligraphy, everything. And yet people think that it's outside that you is doing very well, a professor and everything, and yet you know the person should be at home. People who have gone crazy from refusing to come home empty-handed. And that is really, I wrote this African brothers and sisters to understand that the and at the same time, oh yeah, it is not. It is not. Trust me. I mean, listen, I was in America being rejected every it's Rafina to publish me. And when the book did very well, then what happened? The same publishers that had been rejecting me, that very same publisher came crawling to me and offering me a preempt. So, I mean, come on. You can make it. I know it's difficult though. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, there are times I live in Ghana now most of the time, and there are times when all I can think of is, yeah, I understand why people leave. I mean, it's so frustrating. The system can frustrate you. Sometimes you just have to think outside the box. I don't know. And I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. I can't say thou shalt not ever step foot in the West. But I want to say that if you're going to go there and be an undocumented immigrant, that is the difference. Undocumented. Please don't get on a that you are being auctioned as if you are being auctioned as you know somebody is chopping off your head because you undocumented immigrant. If you're going for a purpose, you have a scholarship to go study, fine. If you finish your studies and they yank away your visa and you try everything and you can't get a visa, let me tell you something. That person who is resting, let me tell you something. That person who is resting, that person who is selling groundnuts, that person who is just there as a driver driving his mole, who are going, hey, and all those people are better off than you sitting down going crazy. And that's what I wanted.
Round of applause for this. So thank you very much, Bisi. It's a beautiful book. I believe everyone on the flight of immigration, on the flight of immigration, America, wherever it is you're Europe, America, wherever it is you're question. And my next question. And my question journey. It's the journey. It's some women, especially women, for some women, especially women. Wait, how do you like? Wait, how do you? A mother. What's the
Women have been doing that forever. Many people help. Many people help. They sustain families all by themselves. I remember the movie that I watched about the displaced people, who were the people who were holding the family together when the men were more or less paralyzed. It was the women. Women have been pulling double shift all along. And I think what makes it easier for us in Africa is that we have, to some extent, a support system. You may have a friend or your extended family, and if you are able, you may even have house help. I think the West is isolation, when you are all by yourself and then you have to do every single thing by yourself. You need to get a babysitter. There were times when I felt like rebellion. I mean, I was chauffeur extraordinaire. I had to be the one driving everybody anywhere. I couldn't say, oh, go get a taxi because I mean, listen, I had sent my son and my daughter. They thought I was irresponsible for doing this. By themselves to school. African children do all these things. Why are you guys so afraid? And they were taking. Well, that was the station they were supposed to take. But my daughter was going to take some advanced classes at Catholic University. She was
very young, but 11 years old. They bombed the Pentagon, and that is the metro station. God, there is something, oh my God, there is something.
And around that time was when they would have been of my children being alone and facing death. The West, I think it's easier, to be honest with you, tell you differently. I mean, before I came to 2022, right? I used to think that Northern women, I'm sure they're very real issues. I'm sure they're very real issues.
Zara, my goodness. When I see Zara, my goodness. When I see Miriam, you've our public that, because that will make her look too old, and she's
so many people, and then I really see so many people, and then I remember, and this girl got, yeah, girl, go, yeah, girl, go. What I want to say is that where was I going? I've forgotten my train of. Women, you can do it.
Thank, thank you. Community and how it's easier. Talking about community and how it's easier, and church community, friends and church community struggle. So vulnerable and somewhere very far away from tied with by blood.
Okay, so when you're desperate, I mean, we need love, we need community, just like air, right? So
today we would call it the MAGA people. And
supposedly well-meaning, at the same time, this way, there are lots of Christians who come and support it. Those people. At the same time, they can never quite replace because of cultural differences, because of unintended, or they are not even aware of it. There are racist tendencies. The time that I set the book, it was very instant WhatsApping. I love you, but you young people lucky, you would have to go $10 and a coin, scratch. You pick up the phone, you enter. You pick up the phone, you enter. And that 50 minutes, I don't even know how they count it, because you talk for 20 minutes. You have to call, but people did not have cell phones. So what happens? Let me go call so and so in the house phone. And oh my God. So communication is very hard. And the only way to do it is to write a letter. You write a letter, you take it to the post office. It takes about 3 weeks for the letter to cross the ocean to get back home. And then, assuming the person responds right away, another 3 weeks. But we all know that most likely they won't respond right away. So communication is very difficult. However, communication is very important. That is the only way to keep in touch and to keep connected to your community. Find a radio station, listen to music. I used to do that all the time. And, although Lola was always listening to some kind of, I don't know, oldies. Yeah.
Thank you, Bisi. So love, I want to bring us
Do we
back
have time
to,
for questions?
yes, yes, I'm looking at the clock. After
Okay.
this question, we open it up. So my question is on love. Love of in Ghana to USA. And I don't want to give them any spoiler. I'm just curious. Do you think it's possible trauma and also find love like trauma and also find love like
For me, I'm an eternal optimist. I mean, I'm the type of person that will be applauding an 80-year-old. No, I really believe that there is no. I'm a. And when I put on this dress, it occurred to me that so I believe that regardless. So I believe that regardless, always rebuild. So it's possible to always rebuild. So very different. There are all kinds of and all its different facets. Yeah.
all right. Thank you so much, BC. And show of hands. Show of hands. Okay, please. Abraham, there's somebody with in brown.
BC, well done, actually. Actually, I'm a researcher. There was an article that I wrote that addressed the issue of Japa syndrome here in Nigeria.
Can you put the mic closer to your mic, please?
I've done a lot of researches and I've seen a lot of things. From what I understood from your book, is there any paying part of Japa in your own story, or is it just the other way round in your story?
Is there any?
Like the good part of Japa, like the good part, the paying part.
Absolutely. I mean, what I want you to understand is that Lola is not me. Although maybe there are a few elements of Lola in me, Lola is not me. My experience was actually different, and I was always trying to go home. It was rather my parents that would say, "What are you coming to Ghana for? Every of good things." I believe that traveling exposes you at life. I believe that looking at life. I believe that even in experiencing a different culture always enriches your life. So I'm a firm believer of that. Any chance I get to travel, I travel. What I was addressing was illegal immigration. When you are traveling and you don't have a right to be there, you don't have the correct papers, and you will stubbornly decide to stay and put yourself in danger, that is what is negative. So traveling, I think that my life is richer for having lived in the United States. And I'm also happy to say that I never, ever forgot who I was, where I came from. As soon as my children were born, I started to share the kind of stories that I knew growing up, our traditional stories, and where they couldn't books, and where they couldn't translated books in. My daughter and I did a bilingual African tree alphabet. That traveling is believed. If you have the opportunity to do it, do it. So the part that is negative. So the part that is negative, you're breaking the law. You're breaking the law.
Thank you. There's another. Thank you. There's another hand.
Good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon, ma. And thank you very much for the wonderful session there. And my question is that, what advice can you give a normal Nigerian that is doing well in of living that dream, intention of living that dream? Because there are so many instances whereby a Nigerian is doing social media pressure because of social media pressure, the line of my maybe I think I might so maybe I think I might say to move back to London, even if it is legal, but you might not know what you are going. I have come across a particular story because I've come across a particular story that was being paid, a monthly salary of 500,000 in Abuja, and he has a place that he is staying with his family, and at the end of the day, he took chance of are not gold. So when they were interviewing him, he opened up that the situation, the current situation that he is in right now is more than the one that he left back in Nigeria. So what advice can you give those Nigerians that think it is all that glitters that is gold? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you for
it's
that
actually
question.
a very good question. And I have an example for you. I had a friend in Ghana from a very wealthy home. Father's house because his father person decided to go and quote unquote learn in America and started working as a and not a waiter in some high class restaurant, a waiter in a place like, okay, I'll give you, it's like KFC, okay, or yeah, McDonald's. And he was doing so poor. As I'm talking to you, he is still there. Yeah, legally, but he's suffering. He has not done. I mean, he was better off when he was here in Ghana. He could buy friends, and he was so wealthy and so generous that he would buy a friend, a female friend, and I'm not talking about a girlfriend, right? Just friend, a ticket, and say, hey, come with me, let's go and go have fun. This man is now a cab gets beaten, an alcoholic, he left back in. If you are doing well in your country, Lola saying, oh, well, here, so let me go and set up a studio and compete with, I don't know, maybe all that. But why not enjoy what you have here and keep growing and keep growing and keep growing? And I believe you can grow. Uze and all the people who are doing such marvelous works here. If you're doing well, look, and in fact, I have to say a lot of Nigerians actually are much better than my fellow Ghanaians. And if you're online, please don't come and attack me again, or you can attack me, I'll ignore you anyway. Even though you are criticizing people, I honestly that a lot of Nigerians are doing very well who are still based in Nigeria. I mean, look at that.
I wanted contributing to the fact that there are so many things we put culturally that has so much kept the northern Nigeria backward, if you may permit me, like the entertainment industry. When there's Vision 3 2020, it means Nigeria should be at par with 20 countries of the world. If I should tell you what we have achieved in that vision, it's entertainment industry, of which film industry and musical industry in Nigeria, all over the world, Nigeria at least is number 3. After Nollywood, Bollywood, then Nollywood. entertainment industry today, our musics are played in parties in America and England and wherever you go. So of which, if and only if you can enjoy yourself in Nigeria, do. The only thing you do is that try to adjust to situations you find yourself. There is nothing out there. I have friends who wanted even coming back. That's a fact. Thank you.
Yeah.
Th-
And we have so many people moving from America to Ghana. Go to a certain town called Pram Pram. It's a lovely, lovely. It used to be a small fishing village. They've taken over all that. Somehow they have found a way to make a living here. And I'll tell you something. Even when I was an international affairs specialist and making a decent income and traveling, the social life that I have here, I would not trade that for the West. I like going there to travel for festivals and whatnot, but I always want to come back home.
Thank you so much for the comments, and thank you, Bisi. And any other question, please? Okay, there is another hand there.
Hi, thank you. So in a lot of ways, your book scarred me. And I said anytime I have the opportunity to meet you, I'm going to tell you. But I think it's a good kind of scar. But my question basically is, I was fascinated about the use of the Andinkra symbols and how it's sort of at the beginning of every chapter, it gave us a hint of what the chapter will be about. And I think that was really beautiful. But my question is, why did you choose to approach each of the chapters using that method also?
Well, so when I was working for the US government, I came down with a team from America, and we visited this town where they make kente cloth. And I also discovered that it was the home of Adinkra. I, like many people, thought only this one or maybe Sankofa. I only knew these two. And I was so surprised to find that there were many symbols, as many as 30 or something like that, and that each one of them had a deeper meaning, and that they were supposed to be, the word Adinkra means saying goodbye, but more of that in the book when you read. But and so when I found out what they meant, I thought to myself, you see, do you know that Apple, if you use an Apple computer, one of the symbols is actually an Adinkra symbol. And African Americans are using this in their, what is that religion, that holiday? What do they call it? That celebration that they have around Christmas. Kwanzaa. This is one of the symbols of Kwanzaa. And in fact, when Chibundu wrote her book Sankofa, I had written mine, and actually the first chapter was supposed to be Sankofa. But when she and I talked, and I found out that the title of her book was going to be Sankofa, and she was using the symbol, I said, oh, okay, let me change it. But what I realized was that if we don't claim our own culture, other people will claim them and then appropriate them. And I'm fine with even that. But then you are lost. Your people are lost. You don't even know what you have. And this was so rich for me to discover the meanings. And so to have Lola in America thinking about home and every situation and thinking of the symbols. So I decided that her mother would use the symbols to be a teaching instrument, or rather teaching instruments for her. And so it was about my own culture that I didn't know, and I wanted the world to share it before next thing we all that is this. And in fact, when Sankofa first came out, one of the things they said was that it was a West African symbol. Well, but it's not post and all that, but it's not forward while looking back. Interest of all those symbols, and
So beautiful.
we have questions for only one more question.
Yeah, one only. But please. Okay.
Hello.
I can't see her. Do you mind? Sorry, cameraman.
Mr.
I
Cameraman,
can't
you
see her. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Everyone you know about illegal immigration. I read the book like over a year, but I've missed something. I can't remember some things. But I think Lola didn't have an illegal immigration, right? She fell in love with an American. Then
Right.
he
The
went
question-
back
that's
to
not-
America. What they say is there is difference between going to a place illegal, right? She got stranded. The one thing she did was maybe that stubbornness, has something to go back to. She lost her job, right? She
You are
couldn't
giving
go back.
spoilers.
I just want to make
Spoilers. Just ask
All
a
right,
question
all right.
without giving spoilers.
just now I said it's not a question. Just that there is difference between illegal immigration and getting started. We have to get the line
Okay,
between that,
Okay,
right?
but the
Thank
text
you.
is the same. So let's be clear. Apart, Lola's case is only an example. All these people that I talk about, that guy who was a killer, he went to America legally. Lots of people actually enter legally, and this is their rationale. I have a visitor's visa. It gives me 6 months. Oh, now I think they've reduced it to 3 months. It used to be 6 months, right? Okay, there's a way to make it. To overstay their visa. But you stayed, whether you entered illegally, right to work. And if you do not have a work permit, you do paper. I don't care what you. A lot of people with master's degrees who are working as living babies, taxi driver with being. You're doing much better in your life like that.
Thank you so much, BC. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you to the audience. Bring us to the end of our book chat. And this brings us to the end of our book chat.